Hey, welcome to the CT Sports Talent Show. My name is Christopher Saunders, and we'll be doing some previews throughout the summer of the local high school football programs in the state of Connecticut. And Ryan Pearson, not only are you the first head coach for Law as far as the new head coach for Law coming into this football season, but also you'll be the first guest for the summer edition. Coach, I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you for having me.
You and I were just kind of talking a little bit about the Valley and obviously, with Shelton as well. When you look at the state real quick of football and how it's evolved throughout the years, even going back to when you played and then looking at it now heading into the 25, 26 portion of the school year as we're currently in the summer, what kind of things schematically have changed when it comes to high school football in the state of Connecticut?
Um, I'd say, I think the offense has got, a jump head start when the spread started all the way back, when I was playing at Trumbull, when Tony Franklin's system really took off. And,
Hmm.
I think defense has had to adjust over time. And I think that's kind of finally hit that window. And you're seeing different formation wise. You're seeing, the spread took off and you're seeing some of the programs kind of head back. And it's funny talking to some of the older coaches I know. Some of the old school stuff has come back full circle, and some of the teams have gone away from the spread, and
Hmm.
the tight ends definitely made a huge comeback. It's so I think the game's definitely headed in that direction. Before it was sling the rock, go as fast as you can, and you could see it kind of changing a little.
It's, you mentioning about the tight ends and being able to be in the spread offense. And again, I broadcast in the Valley, so I'm kind
Yeah,
of biased because that's teams I see. But I feel like when I think about a lot of the teams, like the Torringtons are in the single wing, Naugatuck with Anderson and such and the crew, like they'll go, he'll do anything and everything. He'll throw it if he has to. He'll do the wing T. He'll go to a bunch of
that's a
different
great
formations.
job. Yeah,
Yeah, and Sony with their classic hammer.
yep,
That's probably going to be a staple for the next 100 years,
yeah.
right? But the point that I'm trying to make is that even as though the game has evolved, there are still teams, and there's others too around the state that stick to what's been their bread and butter. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you see it though. Without my point though, like last year, a program like New Canaan, for years they were the offensive guys. Everyone was looking at them, And last year they went tackle over last year. Like and an FCIC team went there, and I'm not going to say who they were playing against, but the team didn't even notice for a couple of drives. It's some of the old school stuff has come back, and it's cool to see some of it.
Yeah, no,
Even us, we line up in that wishbone every once in a while, honor the old teams here.
no, I agree with you on that one. So, Coach, kind of take me into like, I mean, the process. I mean, I know obviously Drew being, a former football guy himself at Foreign. I mean, to be able to have him by your side and being able to talk with him about football and such with the season coming up has to be pretty cool. But just take me into the process of how you became the head coach.
Yeah, I mean, the job had to be posted. I had her
Mhm.
interview a couple times. The first one had to be, I had to meet them online. I was down in Disney with the family, getting down there. So and then I had to come back, interview with them in person. I thought, I didn't know how hard or light it was going to be. They brought me through it, made sure, I was ready for it, and by
Mhm.
the end, I think they felt pretty comfortable giving me the job.
Now, I had the opportunity to talk to the girls basketball coach who was just named the head coach, and
Yeah,
she told me how she came in. She was very prepared, right? Not
yeah.
saying, I'm sure you were prepared as well, but when she came in, she said there was about 12 people in like these big chairs, and there was her in this tiny chair. Was that the same case for you too?
Um, there wasn't as many people in it. I heard she did a rock star job. She came out of that one and
Yeah.
you could see Tom's eyes lighting up when after he met her.
Oh yeah, and I'm sure he felt the same way too after he spoke with you.
Yeah, I hope so.
Well, I mean, it worked. If he didn't, you wouldn't be the head coach.
Yeah, that's right. I guess so. Yeah.
That's the way I view that one. So,
Yeah.
so with you now having the head coaching spot, obviously you've been a part of law for a little bit.
Yep.
So I don't know if the learning curve will be shortened only because now with a new position, obviously with the kids and such, not to say that they don't know who you are, but being a head coach is a little different than being the positions you were prior. So do you feel like maybe the learning curve may just be a little bit longer or shorter? Where do you see that?
I mean, I think it's a little bit shorter. I mean, Haley's given me a lot of, a lot of rope, and he's kind of guided me along the way, and everything's been put in place. I mean, he left no leaf unturned. It was everything from emails to, phone numbers to call to game day playlist. He left everything. It's not one of those places where somebody left and, you got to restart the whole
Hmm.
thing. It was just turn the key over and it was keep going.
So when the news came out that you were the head coach, did you have the opportunity to meet with the team at all before the summer?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Tom introduced me to the team. Obviously, they all knew me already, but kind of just making it official to the kids.
Was there any, throughout the years and such? I mean, obviously, with you having the opportunities as you've had with various coaches and knowing a lot of the ball got, the ball coaches in the state of Connecticut, um, was there ever like when did that itch kind of like when did it kind of come into your mind like, hey, I want to kind of be a head coach? Because not all coaches want to be head coaches. Some like to just be offensive coordinators. Some just like to be defensive coordinators. When did that come for you?
That happened at a real young age, even in high school. I saw the life Bob Maffei lived. I was like, this is who I want to be. I actually grew up Jerry McDougal, Coach McDougal. Sorry for saying Jerry, the first name. It's always Coach McDougal. Him. I grew up with him around the house a lot. So,
Mhm.
growing up with like two big name, guys, it was that was the life I wanted to live. And I saw that's what they did, and that's kind of there. So like at 15, 16, I knew it. It was funny. One of my friends actually texted me. He's like, "Congratulations, you're one of the few guys that have actually doing what they said they were going to do when they were younger."
Do you feel like because you're on the younger side that you still have the ability, and not to say that the older coaches cannot connect with this generation, but obviously there is a gap, right? Do
Yeah.
you feel like because of you being still a young guy that now being the head coach and having all the responsibilities and such, and with you probably having maybe more of a hand on things than before, you can, not to say that the connectivity with the previous coach was not there, but because of your age gap and such, maybe that can help. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think the biggest thing that helps me a lot here is, like I work at the Boys and Girls Club with the teens, so I'm meeting most of the middle school kids before they even get to high school.
Hmm.
I'm one of seven, with the youngest one in my family being 21, so it's closer to the age of the kids. These kids here at work, they keep me kind of in touch with what's really actually going on, so I don't sound completely clueless when I'm talking to them. Yeah,
Hmm.
I think it obviously helps being, closer in age to them.
Now, you said one of seven kids in your family.
Yep, one of seven, and my wife's one of seven as well. So big family parties.
Wow. So, how was that family dynamic? That had to be something.
We were a big sports family growing up. My older brother and older sister were big time soccer players at Trumbull High. My dad was the football guy. I always wanted to be like him. So, I tried the football thing and I fell in love with it.
Growing up with that many siblings and such, I mean, how was that like? Obviously, the sports and everything, but like, take me into that.
Chaos. Just chaos. No, it was great. My parents are the best. They're super involved with my daughter now. It's
Hmm.
My daughter grabs the phone all the time. Grandpa. My mom watches my daughter all the time. So they've always been super supportive of anything we've ever wanted to do. Any sport we wanted to play, any activities, anything.
So, should we be expecting one to potentially already one, but maybe seven grandkids down the road?
Yeah, right. Yeah. I don't know how my parents did it.
Different dynamic too,
Yes.
obviously financially and all that.
Oh, yeah.
Way crazier times now than it was back
Yes,
then.
absolutely.
So coach, as we kind of look towards the summer, right? I know that there's the CIC has extended. They did it last year. They're doing it this year, where all sports can have up to, I think, what was it, 2 hours? I mean, you can fill me in out, but there's 2 days. You could have 2 to 4 hours, something like
Yeah.
that,
Two
of
days, two
practice.
hours, 2 days,
Correct.
2 hours a week. Yep.
Perfect. So being able to have that coach, obviously you've been a part of the program and such, the kids know you. But with
Yep.
now what the turnover is on the roster, and you could fill me in on that. What's that looking like for you with being the head coach now?
I mean, as I said, like the keys kind of turned right over. I mean, the only new coach we added was Jeff Caroga from McMahon, which was huge. So you get another head coaching experience in there, between DeVellis, Billy Pinto, and Jeff Caroga. You have three former head coaches on one staff, so there's things that maybe, I'm not, sure about yet, and I got three guys that I could go to at any time.
Hmm. I
And then
think
Haley's always a phone call away too as well.
And see, I think that's the beauty of a first-time head coach, right? I think it says a lot about the head coach's confidence, or more so just being able to have because you have multiple head coaches, right? You see that with the NBA, you see that with Major League Baseball. I see it with a lot of sports where when you hire a young ball, a young coach or a, first time or whatever it is, a lot of times you'll see the second chair for basketball, or you see the bench coach. It's typically a former major league manager, coach, et cetera, to kind of help guide the young guy. And with
Yeah.
you having all of those head coaches, and if you combine their years coaching, it's got to be not to make them sound old. It's got to be over 100 years. No
Yeah.
offense to Drew and everybody there. Love those guys. But do you feel like that is almost it's a blessing rather than maybe some could view like, oh, those guys are going to try to get at the old, the new guy. I don't think they're going to do that.
No, they're all great guys. Billy Pinto, he was a head coach. He was one of when I was running back at Trumbull, he was my O-line coach. So I've known him for 15 plus years.
Mhm.
Joe, I've coached with him, since the jump at Law, and then Kuroga's an awesome dude. Kind of seeing him through when I was at the FCAC, and he's working over at McMahon still. I know Albano over there, so a
Mhm.
lot of connections that way, and he's a good dude.
Now, obviously, you haven't had your first practice yet as a head coach during the season, which you will have coming up.
Yeah.
Looking at the staff, right? I know when Coach Masters was at Simsbury and we had our conversations prior to the season, I'd have him on the podcast. Because of the amount of guys he had on his staff, he didn't have to be in one place for a long time. He could rover.
Right.
You think you'll have that capability? I'm only saying that because you have so many head coaches where they're used to kind of being in a lot of places. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I mean, I get that, and you know, I watched Haley do it. He gave guys a lot of responsibility because he trusted a lot of guys, and I trust everyone that's going to be on staff. Whether when I was watching Lou at New Canaan, having the trust, and then guys always watching, even when you thought he wasn't watching you. It's kind of like that. Haley was the same way. If
Mm.
they didn't like something, they'd pull you aside, and it was never right in front of the kids. It was, what do you think about this, or what do you think about that? Never calling you out in front of the kids, and giving those coach, you feel like you're a little more trusted when in a situation like that.
No, I agree with that 100% on that, coach. Kind of looking at the football side now, I've seen it here in the Valley. I don't know if it's happening so much where you guys are, and you could fill me in on this, but I feel like football, the numbers have been dropping, and I don't know how significant it is in the area or in the conference in the SEC, but I feel like in the Valley, I'm not seeing as many kids coming out, and I'm seeing the numbers shrink. Is that happening where you are or no?
I mean, we had over 20 freshmen are coming out this year, which is, a huge number for us. So I love seeing that. Like
Hmm.
last couple of years, it's been 10, 15, somewhere around there usually. So seeing a number high as in the 20s was good news for us. It's being a football guy, you're always having to, try and convince some parents, and it's, everyone's worried about concussions and, it's stuff like that. And you can never guarantee somebody it's not going to happen, but we take all the steps we can to, make sure it's not.
Now, you talk about talking with the parents and such about concussions, and how do you combat not just that, but also too, not to say that you're going out and asking every kid in the hallway, but if you see a big kid who's not playing, you're like, hey, if you ever wanted to put on a helmet and paint
Yeah,
some people. I mean,
yeah.
how is that like as well?
It's football isn't for everyone. You'd like to have as many kids as you can, and
Mhm.
some of the kids, you go up to, and the parents are a hard no, and that's it. That's where I draw the line. I'm never going to push somebody to do it, but there's been kids, you could tell they're kind of on the line, and we get a lot of those kids out. Like we had a couple kids, one of our linebackers who's coming back this year was a baseball kid for forever. Finally got him to come out, and he's Haley did a good job getting him coming out, and he was a superstar.
Must have worked out. Sounds like it worked out pretty good.
Yeah, and he's a great kid. The kids listen to him. He's a hardworking kid, and great to have in the locker room.
What are some things, coach, that you want to, I mean, have you made like a checklist of like, okay, obviously you're not going to hit every
Hold
single
on.
thing.
One second. The lights automatically turn off. I'm over here. I had to go over to the club. I didn't want to wake the baby up tonight.
Oh, well, I appreciate you doing that, Coach.
Yeah, no problem.
So,
Sorry.
as far as the list, right? Over the summer, I don't know if you're the kind of guy, my wife is always all right because she just got done with school and she's like, all right, here's what we need to get done before the summer ends. And I'm
Yeah,
like, okay, we'll try. If we get 70, 80%, that's fantastic, right?
yeah.
For you, coach, have you made a list of like, okay, here's the 10 things, for example, hypothetically. If I can get 7 of these done, then it's a successful summer. Have you done that yet?
We have our stuff that we want to get done. I wouldn't say it's, like, oh, if I get 70% done, it's,
Hmm.
this is what we're looking to do. And, we meet with the staff and this is what we're trying to accomplish this summer and get those things going. Um, I wouldn't say per se there's, like a set number we're trying to hit of anything. It's kind
Hmm.
of keep doing our thing and let the ship keep sailing more so.
How much stock do you put into? Because coaches I've talked to around the state, some take 7v7 as a good experience, others take it as just wanting to make sure the kids are going through the reps. But if they win the whole darn thing, I know the grip it and rip it, I think is something they'll be doing again.
Yeah.
If basically what I'm saying is not to look too much into 7v7 because
Yeah.
it's without helmets, it's without pads. Obviously, not everybody is there. How much do you take into that stuff?
Um, As an offensive guy for forever, I loved it. I definitely see why defensive guys hate it. We don't take it. We've never screamed once at our kids on 7-on-7, whether we're hosting it or going to any tournament or anything. We're there, just to get better. Kids are having fun. Um, it's I've seen it since I've been playing in it, coaching in it. It's a good time and it's good just to get back out there with the kids. I look at it that way.
So, what kind of, for people who are potentially or will be going to see the Lawmen play this upcoming football season, what kind of team, without revealing too much, I mean, are you going to be a spread offense? Are you going to be, shotgun? I mean, what kind of offense are we going to be seeing potentially?
It's as I say, I've loved the spread since I've played in it,
Mhm.
coached in it. I've loved to play a million miles per hour. But you will see a tight end this year. You will see, you will see that wishbone again at some point. It's our kids are tough. These kids never complain here. It's
Mhm.
truly tremendous. These kids, you could tell them they're lining up in the wishbone, they won't complain, or tell them they're lining up and empty. These kids literally just go out there and play. So I mean, really, what you're going to see though is tough, hardworking kids. These kids are super bought in this year. Like they wanted the weight room open before summer conditioning even started, and it wasn't like you have to be there. And the weight room was still full with the kids, just getting in there and lifting. Just
Mhm.
trying to get better and holding each other accountable.
And I think that's a big part, especially when you look at how you get consecutive successful seasons.
Yeah,
It's having, because I mean, you guys can only be around them so much, right? You
right,
can only do so much. You can't, you're not their parents realistically.
right.
So they have to have that self-motivation. And it sounds like these young men are kind of putting themselves in the forefront and being
Yeah,
able, okay, this is, if we're going to be better, we need to do X, Y, and Z. And I'm sure the captains are a part of that too.
yeah,
So
absolutely. Yeah, definitely. I mean, these kids, they want it. As I said, these kids literally never complain. It's never no complaints usually ever. These kids, they just show up and work. Even the young kids, it's some of these parents have to drop these kids off at 6:30 because it's a young team, and these kids are still getting here and getting their work in and getting out.
that's impressive. And that shows a lot of maturity from them as well.
Yeah.
Coach, before I let you go really quick, again, I went back to kind of like what can people expect as far as an offense, but as far as a team, what kind of team are you wanting to, regardless of score, what happens on the field in terms of, because you can only control so much, right? What can people expect each and every week from your program during your tenure as head coach?
Every game is going to be tough. It's even if you go out there and you beat us, you feel it the next week. It's something that teams don't want to see us on the schedule, whether it's they know they're going to win or whatever it is. it's not an easy one, and you got to prepare. It's not just to show up and play on Friday night.
Coach, I really appreciate you coming on. Best of luck as far as what you have coming up, and stay in touch.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me.
Always. I wrap things up here in the CT Sports Talent Show. Next time, stay safe. Remember, CT stands Connecticut talent. During find them all. Enjoy your day, everybody, and be well.